Welcome to the Geektastic Cage Match here live at GenRethon 2. I already got it wrong. I already screwed it up. GenRethon 2, Electric Boogaloo, or The Lost World, or Serrano Strikes Back. Say hello to Joe, our sound person.
Hi, Joe.
So let's go right down the line. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do something different than we've ever done. I'm glad I told you guys before we started, so it made things nice and smooth. So we're going to do a thing to kind of do a palate cleanser, get to know you thing. I'm going to just give you a topic, and I want you to go one at a time. Tell people who you are, and then give your answer. Okay?
Okay.
So, right off the top, see which one I want to do. Best Disney villain.
Impossible.
Somebody go. Say your name, say the villain.
Elliott.
Scott.
Capitalism.
Wow.
The moment Disney became all about the money, biggest Disney villain out there. That's when you can't even afford to get into the parks. They're expanding into every country that they can. They went to Disney Shanghai, and they raised how many forests so they could put up another park, which was one of the first ones where there was a COVID outbreak. So, yeah.
Our audience is clapping for you, Elliott.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Rush Limbaugh with us tonight. Pundit. Thank you very much. Okay, who else do we have?
Scott.
I am Jean, and I think I'm going to have to go Maleficent on this one. She is a shapeshifter. She is terrifying. She is fabulous. She is the whole package wrapped up in one. Maleficent.
Well done. And, I'm going to call people out. It'll be easier. Teresa.
I am Theresa, and I will go with Ursula the Sea Witch, because she really pretended to be Ariel's friend and just shanked her. I mean, really bad. And her whole family.
Yeah, she smelled like fish too. That's a real negative.
Yeah.
How about you, Alil?
Ariel.
This is tough. So my name is Alil. I think my Disney villain might be Scar.
Oh.
I think he killed Mufasa, and he's got an awesome song. So he prepared is fantastic. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Molly.
Okay, my name is Molly, as he just said, and I think my favorite Disney villain would have to be Hades from the Hercules one, because he's just sassy and fabulous, and honestly, I think he's the funniest part of that entire movie, which is always the best thing about Disney villains.
I think fabulous seems to be a theme here. Scott.
I'm Scott. I'm Scotty Smurf. And I'm going with Cruella DeVille. She did not have any magic powers. She did not want, and she wasn't ambitious or want to rule the world or anything. She wanted to make a coat out of puppies. That is just ninth level of hell brutal. A coat of puppies. So that's my answer.
Awkwardly taking my coat of puppies off. Okay.
Oh,
and
You know why she wanted to make that coat of puppies, right? Capitalism.
There you go.
Cut it out, Elliott. I haven't said that you've won yet. Cut it out. Chris, go ahead.
All right, my name is Chris, and since my first two choices were taken because I'm going last, I'm going to say the worst Disney villain is the Emperor from Star Wars, because they own it now. So I'm going to go along Elliott's line of capitalism.
Well done. And you're not the last to go, because we have Joe, our sound person. Joe, I'm making you play too.
I'm gonna go with the wild card. I'm gonna say former studio head of animation Jeffrey Katzenberg.
All right. Wow.
He's such a Disney villain. He literally founded DreamWorks just to say fuck you to Disney.
Okay. But is he really a Disney villain? Because he gave us DreamWorks. I would say, what's his name? Wait, what's his name? The Pixar guy that got ousted. The one that we all love.
John Lasseter.
Yeah, there's a villain for you.
And actually, Jeffrey Katzenberg now gave us Queeby. So, hey, if that, I don't know if that could make him a villain too.
Yeah, you know what? I'm still saying capitalism wins. Well done, Elliot. All right, so we are going to start with our matchups. Here's how the show works for those of you that are watching at home. Normally, we get to do this live, and we get it really raucous with an audience. Tonight, we have an audience of one. Hi, Kathleen. Look, we know our audience. And she's muted, so that's it. So we have all of our matchups. I've written up 78 different mashups. Did I mention Joe's here? I've put up 78 different matchups for us to debate out. I'll throw the matchup out. You guys tell me who wants to take what. You argue it out. And then normally we have the audience participate, but we can't really do that tonight. So you guys are going to have to vote on who wins the debate. That's how it's going to work. And in the case of a tie, I win. Okay, so first one up. Let's go ugly. Let's go ugly right up front. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker versus Heath Ledger's Joker. Who wants Joaquin?
I will take Joaquin. This is gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt, y'all.
Yeah. All right. And who wants to take Heath Ledger?
You know what? Can I take Heath Ledger?
Yes. So Chris is Heath Ledger, Sarah Jean is Joaquin Phoenix, and everyone else, if you can mute your mics, let these two go at it.
Sarah, you can start if you'd like.
Okay, all right. Well, here's what I'll say to start. I think everyone knows that Heath Ledger's Joker is untouchable in its own right. Here's what I will say about Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. It is a realm all on its own. I think that it is a fresh take on the Joker. We've seen the Joker a million bajillion times. We've seen different actors do it. We've seen different stories. We've seen different backstories. I think that is some sound, Joe. I think it's just a really refreshing take on the Joker and his life. And Joaquin, I think, really delivers 120% and gives probably too much of himself to his role. But I think that really came through, and I think it stands on its own.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one to argue because I think Sarah went down the right path that they both gave unbelievable performances and they both gave it their all. But they're both Oscar-winning performances. But I think Heath Ledger, he literally stole that movie from everybody else. As good as Christian Bale was, as good as everything else, you saw that trailer and went, oh my gosh. Now, Joaquin Phoenix did a good job, but is it really the Joker? Or is it just Joker-like? I mean, I don't know if that movie is the Joker or just some guy where Heath Ledger is tied in with Batman, is tied in, and he literally changes that whole universe where it establishes it where that villain is part of it. So I thought he did much better. And you want to talk about changing his role? I don't want to say that it cost him his life, but it may have put Heath Ledger in such a state that he did not want to go on living for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad, but I think that's given all for it. So
I will say I think one major point to the Joker's character is to really get into your heads. He's going to mess with you. What he does, his actions, his words, they're going to sit with you for a while, and they get in your head and they creep you out, and that's a major part of the Joker being who he is. And I think that after watching Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, it wasn't cartoon Joker anymore. It was real Joker.
Yeah, but wasn't Heath Ledger that with the boats and with everything?
But I feel like I could still associate that with like DC comic book. Yes, Heath Ledger blew it out of the water and made it something it had never been. But that's still like comic book Joker. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, that people relate to that. People have known people or are that person who has gone through stuff in their lives, who's been pushed down like that. And he portrayed it so well that I think that sits with you longer and harder than then Heath Ledger's Joker is gonna sit with you, like on a personal level, like on a mental level.
Maybe, but I don't think that Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker is the leader of this movement, where Heath Ledger is definitely manipulating the town and city of Gotham to make them be chaotic. He is all about chaos, where Joaquin Phoenix, unfortunately, is it's a great performance and he's awesome, but it's about his mental illness and how people reacted to it, as opposed to where Heath Ledger is making good people make the decision. Now, whether they made the right decision or the wrong decision, or whether they did what he wanted, I think is, I don't want to say immaterial, but I think he was the catalyst and he caused the chaos and he made that happen. Where Joaquin, the people just reacted because maybe they were a little bit more mad or a little bit more upset. Although, like you say, it's maybe 1A, it's 1 and 1A. It's tough. So.
All right. So you guys, your arguments are out there. If any of you want to say something, you can jump in and say something anytime here. Now that they've given their arguments, or we're going to go to the vote. Oh, I guess we're going to the vote. Everyone went silent. All right. So who won? Phoenix or Joaquin? Phoenix or Joaquin? They're the same damn thing. Phoenix or Ledger? Phoenix.
Okay, can I just for a moment before we get to the actual vote, because I kind of have to throw in something here. I guess when you said you wanted to say something, I should have said something. Because I got to tell you, when it comes to debating these things, and I want to put this out for the evening, that my vote is swayed, okay, by the use of tropes, cliches, and overused terms, okay? So like Sarah Jean was really good there, and then she said that Joaquin Phoenix gave 120%. It's impossible. It's a mathematic impossibility to give 120%.
Oh, good. It's beyond our understanding of numbers.
Right, okay. And
you read a comic book about a grumpy cat. Wait, hold on a second. Cats? And a comic book about grumpy cats. I just want to put that out there.
We can go there too. But then Chris, Chris.
Yeah, let's attack Chris.
Was doing really well. Stubbed his toe when he said that Heath Ledger literally stole the film. So if he had literally stolen the film, that meant he took all the film, and we never would have seen his performance.
Can you prove that or not? I can mathematically prove that you can't do 120% of effort, but you cannot prove that he didn't steal the film.
We do have something.
We saw the movie, so we know he didn't steal it.
Well, there's copies. He could have stolen the film. He could have stolen a film off of my wife off with my head. Great.
Okay, but wait. Sarah Jean's thing was much more grounded in reality. 120% is mathematically impossible. But what Chris said means there would be no movie, so there would be no argument.
That's not true.
So
no, because it could be stolen and they could have gotten it back.
Yeah.
Well,
have you ever heard of videotape?
Okay, but can you look?
No, she's like, what are you, 11? How old are you?
I'm your child.
Oh, okay.
This is your child. You don't know how
I know.
old your child is?
She's 13. I was just teasing her.
And in the words of Rob Southgate, mark my words, you're coming back with this trope and all these.
Oh, yeah, it's coming back at you.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah,
because Alil is already plotting. I see it in his eyes. I know him. He's plotting.
That's not plotting. He had a big dinner.
So anyway, I'm voting. I'm going to vote for Sarah Jean.
Okay, so it's Sarah Jean. That's one vote I've heard. So Heath Ledger. Who had Alil? Who do you vote?
Joaquin Phoenix.
I'm going to vote for Sarah Jean.
No, you're Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix. Okay.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. Alil.
Heath Ledger.
Molly.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Are you even old enough to see this movie?
No, but I know enough about it.
Sure she is.
There we go.
Sure she is. What about Theresa? You're not showing up on my screen here, Theresa. Ledger. Okay. Scott.
Ledger.
That's
People
everybody,
know
right?
Where their coffee comes from, Elliott. Just saying.
Joe, I was gonna offer you a vote, but now we have a clear winner. If I give you a vote, we don't have a clear winner. So it's Ledger. right?
Can you play some celebratory music? Because this is literally the first time I've ever beaten Sarah in any argument. I think this might be the first one she's lost ever. It was unfair.
It's the disadvantage of being at home.
Yeah,
because I want to vote for Cesar Romano.
Cesar Romano, he gave a very cheesy performance, didn't he?
Well, was that Ray Romano's brother? We're talking about Cesar Romero.
Cesar Romero, yeah.
Oh no, I'm the Joker.
1966.
You mean with the makeup over the mustache? You're just jealous.
A random vote for a random person.
Give me some time. I'll work up a Ray Romano Joker bit. Okay. Yeah. No, not enough time for that to ever happen. Let's go with the next one. Let's do. Oh no, I don't want to do this one. This one's way too good.
Now I want to know what one that was.
No, it's really good.
It's Micronauts versus something your dad made up. Don't worry about it.
It's probably.
That would be accurate for the tone of this.
So let's do Tom Baker versus William Shatner. Tom Baker, for those of you that don't know, you can leave. No, for those of you that don't know, he was the fourth Doctor. William Shatner, for those that don't know, he was T.J. Hooker. And he wrote Tech Wars. That's about it. So who wants to take Shat? Elliott. Elliott has taken a Shat. And who wants to take a Baker?
Am
Chris?
I doing this?
You're taking a Baker.
You know I will if somebody else doesn't want to. So.
Well, Chris owns the Blue Box Cafe, so he's got an affinity. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do, but it's like you having to take a Marvel person a little, but you still love Batman, and Batman would win. It doesn't matter.
Batman would never win. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, we will. Okay, so it's Elliott has Shatner, Chris has Tom Baker. Do it.
You're gonna let me go? Okay. So
age before beauty, my friend.
Oh well, unfortunately, I'm in big trouble with this one. So you know what? Tom Baker to me is one of the most iconic, the same king, kind of like with Kirk. Kirk is, one of many people to play, or William Shatner is one of many people to play Kirk. Tom Baker is one of many people to play Doctor Who. And he so defined the role that nobody has even come close to repeating what he does. Although other actors who have played that role have added to it, I don't think anybody else, even if it's Chris Pine or whoever that has played Kirk to the level that Shatner has. Tom Baker defined it. He did it. It's his. He doesn't overact. He's not tremendously egotistical, although they're both up there in age, and Tom was a little egotistical for a while there, but he just when you think of Doctor Who, if you have ever watched classic Who, you know what that is. So that's where I'm going to come from. Although Star Wars is a huge franchise, and there's not much you can say about that, but I'm just going to say Tom Baker has across the globe just done that.
You're right. Star Wars is a huge franchise, but William Shatner wasn't in it. Elliott, would you like to go?
Did I say Star Wars?
You did.
I'm sorry. Isn't it Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, it's like 120%. You were wrong. All right, Elliott.
Of the two shows that I watched when I was a kid, one was Star Trek. I can't even get the damn name right.
The other one was My Mother the Car.
I'm
all right.
Old, so.
Elliott, go.
See, here's the thing. If we were arguing the fourth Doctor versus Captain Kirk, I'd probably give you that. I'd probably give you that Tom Baker on a character level is there. But we're arguing Tom Baker versus William Shatner here. And we're talking about, and as passionate as Doctor Who fans are, and I am one of them, I count myself among Who fans, even Tom Baker does not have the international recognition that William Shatner does. Because if you don't know him from Star Trek, you know him for T.J. Hooker. If you didn't know him from T.J. Hooker, you knew him from Boston Legal. He's also won Emmys That's something that unfortunately Tom Baker can never say that he's done. I'm not even sure he's even won a BAFTA. So add to that, Tom Baker,
That's really hard because I've been a Star Trek fan for so long. But
William Shatner reinvented himself, and he pitched he pitched Priceline. Would you have known what Priceline was if it weren't for William Shatner?
Well,
so when it comes to just overall recognition, adaptability, being able to reinvent yourself for every opportunity and pretty much be known across generations, not because your parents knew you, the parents knew him, and then they introduced him to the kids, but he was just constantly out there to where he's a fixture of pop culture. Known worldwide.
I'll go with Baker.
As much as I love Tom Baker, and as big of a jerk as William Shatner is, I got to give it to William Shatner.
Out that Baker
I knew Priceline because of Penny. I don't know about you, but that's what I remember. So, all right, those were the debates. Anyone want to jump in before we take the vote?
Oh,
yeah.
So, Elliott, I agree with what you were saying a lot. But you said the thing about the Emmys, and I would like to point out that there are so many brilliant actors and so many brilliant shows that have not won Emmys. I believe The Office only won one, and there are so many things. So you cannot base it on an awards ceremony that is so fickle and that means nothing. But the rest of your argument was sound.
Until you win one, Molly, then it means something, but that'll be okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Molly, are you going to say no to an Emmy? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, what I'm trying to tell you is that it's not enough to base an argument on.
Oh, Molly, this was your argument. Oh,
because I was not in the debate?
Ouch.
Ow.
But
yeah. She's trying to get a GEGOT. She wants to get the Emmy, the GeekNet. Yeah, right. That's why I'm downstairs. Okay, let's take some votes here. We'll have to go right through. Scott, what say you?
That's really hard because I've been a Star Trek fan for so long, but...
Who won the debate?
Baker. He is a more gracious...
The debate.
What?
Who won the debate? You're not debating who is.
Well, they're talking about their points there, and...
I think Scott took a nap.
I was going to say, he reminds me of the Big Lebowski. He's just sitting there in his chair with his hair all...
Where's his robe?
I was going to say, that's all he's missing right now is the robe.
I'm glad he's wearing pants.
Where your robe went, Dad.
I am shocked that he's wearing pants.
So, hands up. Who's not wearing pants here? Okay. So, all right, Scott, go ahead. Who do you vote for? Baker. Theresa.
I'm going to go with Shatner, even though I will point out that Baker is well known for his voiceovers and has been in so many things. But I'm still going to go with Shatner because of your argument with the multi-generational recognition.
Sarah Jean.
Shatner, same reasons.
Shatner. Okay. Let's see. Molly.
Okay.
Shatner, same reasons.
Oh, boy.
As this pretty much unknown thing across
hard for me to say
here.
Because I love Chris so
and
much.
Then everybody started to get a little bit
my grandfather.
What is this? And then the word of mouth on this.
But he lost the argument. I mean, Tom Baker.
Zero reference point prior to PBS playing it here.
He lost the argument. It's Shatner.
As well.
The Shat has won.
It had nothing to go on, and then
Molly,
it exploded.
Molly, come on. Are you still in elementary school? Do you know how to add?
Mother-in-law was going to a fancy.
No, she's homeschooled. Come on, man.
That's down in
It's not how you look; it's how you feel. So
true. I feel amazing. So.
There were no books for this. There were no anything.
Well, that brought the whole conversation to a screeching halt. Well done. Okay, so
if Molly plays her cards right, she can probably win a Nickelodeon.
Shamalama Ding Dong
Oh, ouch, Elliott! Ouch!
There's nothing wrong with that. You get slimed on stage.
Yeah, it's like any This Week in Geek live show. So yeah, Shatner won.
You get to meet Screech for that, don't you? It's awesome.
No, he's in jail still.
What's her last name? No.
They let him out for the awards ceremony.
Maggie Smith.
It's his one, furlough
Maggie
day.
Smith.
All right, next matchup. This is one we've never done. Game of Thrones
Her
versus
stairs.
Downton Abbey.
She won everything, dude. She is
Yeah.
like
So
she's a
who wants to
goddess.
take Game of
I mean,
Thrones?
there is no
Who got
doubt.
got?
Okay,
She is
I'll
a
take Game of
goddess,
Thrones, but this is hilarious
and
because
even in
I've
her
been
other roles,
watching
she kept going
Downton Abbey
on
again for the
um,
last several days in a row.
during
so
the
it's
last
gonna
Harry
be tough. I'm
Potter
gonna have to like
movie
separate
and
myself
gave
a little
Okay.
a beautiful
So who?
performance.
Okay, then who's going
I
to
know
take
I'm
Downton
getting
Abbey?
off track here. You guys can
I'll
pull me
take
back.
Downton Abbey if nobody else
While
wants
she
Yeah,
was
Teresa,
trying to
step
live with
up.
cancer and
So here we go. Downton Abbey versus
I
Game of
mean,
Thrones.
Come on.
Fight.
And then the rest of the cast.
All right,
Hugh
Teresa, you go
Bonneville,
for it. I started my
freaking
last
amazing. There's
Okay.
just it was just
Downton
like
Abbey
one after
started
the other
out
after the
as
other
this
of
pretty much unknown
just
thing across the
absolute
pond here.
exquisite caliber
And
actors
then
and
everybody
actresses
started to get a little bit
giving
like, what is this? And then
such
the word of mouth
such a
on
heartfelt
this
performance
from something that
and
had
I mean even down
zero
to
reference
they've talked
point
about
prior
rape and
to
murder.
PBS playing it
I
here,
mean
and I guess
it
BBC
has
America
covered
as well.
the
I don't have
entirety
cable.
of almost
It
all
had
of human
nothing to
emotion
go
in
on,
existence,
and then
pretty
it
much
exploded to the point that my mother-in-law was going to a fancy hat party that's Downton Abbey based. I mean, what? there were no books for this. There were no anything.
Okay.
And it became a huge phenomenon. And the twists and turns and the M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong stuff in this, I mean, it went bananas. You got somebody dying with eclampsia, and then all these
Spoiler.
and Maggie, what's her last name?
Gyllenhaal.
No.
Grace.
Smith.
Maggie Smith.
Maggie
Oscar
Smith.
winner Maggie Smith.
Oh
Damely.
my God.
Maggie Smith is amazing.
Yeah,
Awards don't matter on this
Look.
argument.
her withering
Did she win an Emmy?
hair.
Did she win an Emmy or a Jupiter?
She won everything, dude. She is like she's a goddess. I mean, there is no doubt. She is a goddess, and even in her other roles, she kept going on during the last Harry Potter movie and gave a beautiful performance. I know I'm getting off track here. You guys can pull me back. While she was trying to live with cancer and overcome it. I mean, come on. And then the rest of the cast, Hugh Bonneville, freaking amazing. There's just, it was just like one after the other of just absolute exquisite caliber actors and actresses giving such a heartfelt performance. And I mean, even down to, they've talked about rape and murder. I mean, it has covered the entirety of almost all of human emotion and existence, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right.
So, speaking of rape and murder and huge, amazing storylines and brilliant performances, let's talk about Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones was a soap opera. That
I'm going to start by talking
Wait.
about
Is there murder in Game of Thrones? Spoiler.
You might have missed it.
Yeah.
You might have missed it.
Okay.
Just rewatch it. You'll catch it. So I'm going to start by talking about the fan base and the audience that this reaches, because I know you said that Downton Abbey kind of exploded and was everywhere, but Game of Thrones started as a book series, of course, a book series that gained popularity over years and was brilliantly written, and then turned it into this TV series that did not pop up out of nowhere. It was hyped. It was exciting. Everyone was ready. Everyone was waiting. And it did not disappoint up until maybe the last few seasons, but that's for another argument. So I think it took off running. Was that a cliche? Are you going to mark that against me, Elliott? It hit the ground running. It took off. Everyone was with it nonstop from beginning to end. And here's what's the best part about it is I think
people
Downton Abbey really takes kind of a
this genre
specific
before, Diving
it's
into
like
it,
it's one genre.
I think
really.
that it
You
had a
have to
much
be
wider reach
in
than
that I
maybe
really love this
what you might have
specific
seen
time period,
in
this
your
specific
own
part of history
circle
to be able to
of,
sit
people.
through it.
But
Otherwise, you're not going to make it through an
pulled a
episode, and
lot
you're
of
not
people.
going to make it
People
through
were
the
talking
series
about it at
for
the
sure.
office.
I
Game
have
of
to back her
Thrones
up
is
because all
for
my life,
everyone.
if a
You
book
like
didn't
fantasy,
have an
great. You
alien
like
or a
politics,
robot
great. You like
or
murder
a
and
ghost or
scary things,
something, you know,
great. You like
in
horror,
it to cause
awesome. You like
trouble,
war,
I didn't
great.
have
You
any
like
interest
peace
in it.
and
But
love
Downton
making and
Abbey
lovey-dovey
drew me
stories.
in. It
It's got
sucked
it
me in.
all. It has something
Because
for
of
everyone.
the
It reaches a
stunning writing of the
huge
characters.
audience
the
range from around the entire world. And Downton Abbey, I really feel like you gotta kind of like.
I mean, I
you
can't
have to
say that
enjoy that
Game
one
of
little
Thrones
specific time period,
would
that
ever put me
passion
on the
and that.
couch crying.
And it's also like, let's be
Downton
real,
Abbey
it's a soap opera, and not everyone is into that. It's a beautifully written soap opera.
What was Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones was a soap opera that sucked at the end, and Downton Abbey didn't.
I can't argue with the fact that Downton Abbey ended beautifully and Game of Thrones maybe not so much. But I just think Game of Thrones is for a much, much wider audience. I think it gives you a taste of absolutely everything, no matter what kind of story adventures you are into. It gives that to you. I think it satisfied the readers to an extent. I read all the books. I was as satisfied as whatever. But I just think it's going to reach a lot more people, and I think it's exciting. Every single episode is thrilling. I think Downton Abbey has the story is up and down. You're totally with it, and you kind of cry, and you kind of laugh, and you like them. But Game of Thrones, you are in it. You are on the edge of your seat, no matter what episode you're watching. You don't know what's going to come next. You don't know who's going to die next. Kind of
I disagree about the audience reach. I mean, when you have people who have never touched this genre before diving into it, I think that it had a much wider reach than maybe what you might have seen in your own circle of people. But it did. It pulled a lot of people. People were talking about it at the office.
I have to back her up because all my life, if a book didn't have an alien or a robot or a ghost or something, you know, in it to cause trouble, I didn't have any interest in it. But Downton Abbey drew me in. It sucked me in because of the stunning writing of the characters.
And the relatable
didn't suck you in?
Well, in the relatable drama. I mean, I can't say that Game of Thrones would ever put me on the couch crying triggered. Downton Abbey did.
Can I just say it's kind of like Survivor? Did you see how there's a power couple all of a sudden that formed here? And I think Sarah Jean needs.
I was like, I call nepotism.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, okay. We've had the argument. I want to see anyone else want to chime in.
This is Geektastic Cage Match. This isn't PBS. Let's talk about post-World War I England.
Okay, we'll take Doctor Who off too.
But that's not post. That's before, after, beginning of time, end of time. That covers all of it. Downton Abbey is a great show, but it's very specific. This is Geektastic Cage Match, and it's Game of Thrones. It's dragons. It's Sean being. It's the main character getting killed in the 8th episode. It cut off his head.
They have got
Nobody
so
saw that
much
coming.
money.
Way to spoil.
I was gonna say I haven't watched either.
Well, guess what?
I thought it was called Downtown Abbey, like Downtown Julie Brown.
Downtown Elgin. There we go. I mean, is Downton Abbey a good show? Great, but please, no offense to PBS. Who watches PBS? Nobody. 10,000 people. Game of Thrones is on HBO. It was the #1 show for 8 years. I mean, is it interesting? Yeah, but it's not that book come to life in like the first 6 seasons were unbelievable.
I thought it was just a really boring version of Downtown Disney when I got into it. Okay.
I have something.
But that's my
wait, Molly has something to say.
Okay, so as being someone who has not watched either of these and probably should not even be saying anything in this debate.
All right, let me mute you.
I would like to say that on the outside of this,
Thank you.
from what I've seen, might just be the people I'm around, but Game of Thrones has such a bigger reach. And a big thing for me is like when I'm listening to something or reading something, I want to see how many different ways I can get involved with it. And Downton Abbey, there's a show, and then sometimes you can get together and people and talk about it. But Game of Thrones, you have books, you have the show, you probably have podcasts, you can cosplay the characters, you can go to Comic-Cons and find other fans, you can do all of these things with that series.
But Molly, didn't you hear Theresa said we're having a Downton Abbey hat party, and
Yes,
we're all going to be involved. So
about it. It's
Well,
just,
and Game of Thrones had
so much more.
Game of Thrones had millions in advertising. Downton Abbey did this all just on the show alone.
And they had a movie.
And a movie, yeah.
Well, wait, I'm sorry, but if you're saying that, are you implying that Game of Thrones should not have used the money that they received?
Well, they were bankrolled by HBO. They have got so much money. I'm saying that.
And the BBC doesn't have money?
I have something I want to say.
I don't.
Oh, we have a guest chiming in. Hold on a second. Joe is one of our viewers. Joe, what do you have to say?
So as someone who has not seen either of these shows,
another qualified voice. Let's hear it.
Outside of YouTube clips and best of compilations. First off, Chris, I challenge your assertion that very specific interests are not geek, because I think you'll find that the more specific the interest, usually the more dedicated and passionate the fan base. So
I agree with you, Joe.
I reject you outright. And in Downton Abbey didn't completely and utterly break the internet with how disappointing its ending was.
Thank you.
But Game of Thrones did.
But that just goes to show how much more passionate all of
Well
it
done,
was.
Joe.
Like, everyone had a strong opinion one way or another about how that show ended. And no matter how they ended it, a bunch of people were going to be pissed off and a bunch of people were going to be satisfied. Whereas with Downton Abbey, I guarantee.
Whereas with the way they did end it, everyone was pissed off.
No matter what happened, someone was going to be pissed off, and that's because of the passion that the fans have for the story and how they wanted it to wrap up. Whereas I think Downton Abbey could have ended a bajillion different ways, and people would have been like, okay.
There's a cat.
That was nice.
Okay, we're gonna move on. I need to get a vote. So, is it Downton Abbey or is it Game of Thrones? Elliot?
I do.
I was on Theresa's side until she mentioned a triggering event that made her cry on her couch, which made me think of the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones and when the fate of Robb Stark's direwolf, which made me so angry I was throwing things. So that swings me back to Game of Thrones. I'm on Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. All right, Molly.
This was really hard. Oh, my light is dying.
Let me preface this by
was really
saying,
hard
as a
for me,
child
'cause
of the 80s, I grew up
I've
with
gotta
Luke
say Game of
Skywalker as my
Oh,
hero.
Chris.
As a kid, I wanted to grow up to be either Mr. Spock or Luke
I thought
Skywalker.
for sure you were going to say Downton Abbey.
For, whatever.
Okay,
Alil. And I still love
I haven't watched
episodes,
either.
the original
There's
trilogy.
more Marvel Cinematic
If
Universe
this is an
actors in Game of
absolute
Thrones,
showdown. Anakin
God, and
is
Scott.
a far stronger Jedi, a far stronger
Downton Abbey.
commander.
All right.
He doesn't get a vote. He was
a far
arguing
stronger
with his wife.
presence in the Force at the point of Revenge of the Sith than Luke was even in
Game of Thrones?
episode 6.
All right, now who are we going to vote off this island?
Are we going to do that? That would make this game so much more interesting. We might want to add that.
So much higher.
Yeah, Molly's out.
So
Okay,
much war experience.
let's
He's,
go with.
Padawan at this point.
Let's see. This is one I actually have been really waiting for here because I think this is going to. If we were doing this live,
he falls in
this would be the point in the show where I don't get booed, but one of you get booed.
Most powerful
Episode.
characters in the entire lore.
The music would work.
Luke in episode 6
True.
is a
Episode
great
3, Anakin,
and
versus episode 6,
but
Luke.
he was not as strong, and he
Got to be
depending
specific.
on
Episode
pulling
3,
back
Anakin,
to the light
versus
to win
episode
that
6,
fight in the
Luke.
throne room on the Death
Who
Star.
wants
But
Anakin?
Anakin was in control.
Scott
of
wants little
everything,
Annie.
and he wasn't.
Who wants
But
Luke?
Just a much more commanding presence.
You know, I love Star Trek, so I'll take powers of where he was. Elliott, don't stop, would you?
Isn't that the one where he becomes a Borg? Okay, let's do it. We've got Scott versus Chris. It's a This Week in Geek spectacular. It's a showdown cage match. We're gonna put a cage up on you guys. Okay,
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, little Annie versus Rookie.
Let me preface this by saying, as a child of the 80s, I grew up with Luke Skywalker as my hero. As a kid, I wanted to grow up to be either Mr. Spock or Luke Skywalker, for, you know, whatever I would be as I grow up. But, and I still love episode, you know, the original trilogy, Luke. But if this is an absolute showdown, Anakin is a far stronger Jedi, a far stronger commander, just a far stronger presence in the Force at the point of Revenge of the Sith than Luke was even in episode 6.
So are you actually having them fight out, like the two of them at those ages fighting? Is that what you're thinking?
That plus just the strength of their characters. You know, Anakin has had so much war experience. He's had a Padawan at this point. He's grown up with Obi-Wan. You know, he's trying to keep his relationship secret. He is very strong, and up until the point where he falls in Palpatine's office, he is one of the most powerful characters in the entire lore. And Luke, you know, Luke in episode 6 is a great character and always inspirational.
I think if it was just a pure showdown between episode 3 and depending on
episode 6, Luke pulling Anakin back to the
Luke was able to win in 6
fight in the throne room on the Death Star. Anakin was in control of everything, but at episode 3 he was at his peak, a much more commanding presence.
He was channeling the Force
of his faculties, of his powers, of where he was.
All right, Chris.
I mean, you say he was more powerful, but didn't Anakin get his butt kicked by his son in episode 6? Didn't he? I mean, didn't he do that? I mean, and Luke really had no formal training. Had Yoda, you know, had what, Obi-Wan for whatever time period that was, a week, couple of days probably, and then had Yoda for a couple of months, and still he learned how to be a Jedi on his own and was able to beat his father and then be able to turn his father back to the light side, that the Emperor who turned him to the dark side was sitting there and got him at the end to do that. I mean, Luke, you know, maybe if you were to look at it and say, well, Anakin had more, you know, was stronger in the Force, which I don't even think that's the case. He had all of the ability and training and all of the Jedi Academy and all of these Jedi to learn from. Qui-Gon, who is arguably one of the more influential, you know, Jedi of his time, to teach him what to do, where Luke had to figure it out on his own, and he still won. You know, and I think Anakin was conflicted. Anakin was led around kind of like a bull with a ring in his nose by the Emperor, or, you know, by Palpatine to make him go dark. I don't think he was really strong. I think he actually lacked a lot of character and was very strong in the Force, but wasn't that good, you know, wasn't that strong of a Jedi. Where
that is a great point. You know, it's Jedi, you know, growing up as a slave on Tatooine, in the end won. And you know, he had a little sass to him, but he was still willing to help Qui-Gon and Padme.
It was just a pure showdown,
you know, by doing episode 3. He still had a good heart then. 6, Luke, he was upset at having to leave his mother, and he was still worried about her because you know, and that was part of his downfall. But he had to overcome these things, and he had to come up and through this Jedi organization that treated him with contempt. And they didn't want to train him.
But you know what? He would not have beaten
and he still
Anakin would not have beaten Mace Windu, who was a much better lightsaber fighter than Anakin was at the time. And the only reason that you know, Mace Windu lost against the Emperor was that Anakin distracted him, and he wouldn't have beat Yoda and he wouldn't have beat Qui-Gon at the time that they did that. And I don't think Luke would have lost to any of them. You know, it's hard to debate because there's obviously different. There's a lot of different special effects along the way, you know, between the battles. I just don't. I think Luke was much stronger and and much more powerful.
Okay. So anyone want to chime in before we take the vote? Just chime in if you do. You don't have to raise hands.
I'll chime in.
It's Joe again.
Something that neither of you really truly touched on was the power of each individual character's stories, like what they were and what they achieved. Yeah, I mean, Chris touched on, turning his father back to the light.
You're half right there. The prequel Jedi,
arc of
the
Luke
point of the
Skywalker,
Jedi in the prequel,
it was always
he
was
were
the
fading.
hero.
They were
He
in
had
their
challenges,
twilight.
but he always
They
persevered.
were up in their little ivory tower, literally
is a
their tower.
fascinating character study,
and they were not.
What happens
they were
when
not
someone's
feeling
deep
the,
compassion for their loved ones
what was
and
happening
fear of
out there.
loss
Qui-Gon could do
can
that.
be
The living,
so
he was in tune
easily
with the living
twisted
force. He was
by
aware of
applying
these
just the right
things.
pressure,
The Jedi
just the right
tried to
times
detach
to turn him into a
to be
monster
impartial.
of a fascist
That was their
dictator.
failing with
And I think that is
Anakin. They didn't
absolutely
understand
fascinating.
that he still that is a great point.
and
him growing up as a slave on Tatooine
instead of helping
and
him work through
he
those
had a little
emotions,
sass to him, but he was
getting
still
him to
willing to
therapy.
help Qui-Gon and Padme.
Despite all
by
those
doing
failings
the
of the
Jedi
Jedi had a
Order,
good heart
Anakin
then.
still persevered.
He was
and
upset at having to leave his mother, and
he's still worried
up
about
until
her.
he
wasn't, but until then,
that
he
was part of his
very
downfall,
strong. But he had to overcome these things,
course of action,
and he had to come up through this Jedi organization that treated him with contempt. They didn't want to train him at first. Obi-Wan had to force the issue. And he still overcame these, and he still wanted to be with the Jedi
until
Order.
he wasn't.
And he wanted to fight for them until.
But were they wrong in what they thought about him? Yoda knew exactly what was going to happen with him. Yoda knew that he was conflicted. Yoda knew that he had anger issues and was going to turn. He potentially knew that he was going to turn to the dark side. Yet they still trained him.
A war criminal,
and I don't want to say
a shady
that's
situation,
not his fault,
but still a known
if you were
war
talking
criminal and a
episode
clear
3,
and present
he
danger.
knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what the Jedi stood for,
That was after
and he
the
still
fact.
defied them. And then in the end, he ended up turning to the dark side because he was not, after all of that training, did not have the force, or did not have his own personal character to not be twisted because his love for Padme, that just didn't work with what being a Jedi was.
Well, I'm going to throw out another hot take and say that the prequel Jedi were garbage and Order 66 was a good thing.
Well, you're half right there. The prequel Jedi, the point of the Jedi in the prequel,
But not all of them.
that they were fading. They were in their twilight. They were up in their little ivory tower, literally their tower on Coruscant, and they were not feeling the what was happening out there. Qui-Gon could do that. The living, he was in tune with the living force. He was aware of these things, but the Jedi tried to detach themselves so as to be impartial. And that was their failing with Anakin, is they didn't understand that he still had those attachments. And they just told him, well, don't be attached, instead of helping him work through those emotions, instead of getting him to therapy. Despite all those failings of the Jedi Order, Anakin still persevered and was a good person up until he wasn't. But until then, he was a very strong force of action and a very good person.
But being good is defying. I mean, I hate to say defying the rules. He was a pretty decent person as a kid. But in episode 3, he was good. Where was he good? I don't see him being good at all.
He wasn't.
Yeah, but that's that's like saying he wasn't a killer until he killed somebody.
He went back to save the clone pilots in the battle at the very beginning.
Yeah. He
personally killed Newt Gunray.
But then he killed Count Dooku in cold blood.
A war criminal, a shady situation, but still a known war criminal and a clear and present danger.
What about all those little Padawans he killed?
Yeah.
That was after
how does that get cleared? How does killing one kid or a room full of kids?
You're not asking.
Wait, I'm sorry, Chris. What did you say about killing one kid?
This is episode 3, Anakin, and episode 6, Luke. Luke ascends and overcomes his obstacle and turns his father, who we're talking about, back to the light side and beats him in a lightsaber and proves that he's a stronger Jedi and stronger in the Force. Where Anakin, who may or may not have been strong, may or may not have been a good guy, kills a bunch of little kids and then turns to the dark side.
Okay, we're going to have to move on. This one's going to go on forever. So look at that. Kathleen is applauding because her husband made a point. Okay, so
I'm gonna go for Anakin,
Martha's still
but I
waiting.
want to
yeah, right.
also point
Is she?
out,
Is she on there? So you're waiting for me to make a point.
may
Let's do the
have been a
vote.
better person
Annie
because
or
his
Lukey?
entire childhood was
Elliott.
a loving family.
Look, okay, I'm going to tell you something. These are two of the best arguments
That was
that
good,
I've
solid
ever
work.
heard
You know
against
what?
these
Solid
characters. 'Cause,
farm work.
I mean, both of them. I mean, again, I'm a Luke stan. Okay, I am a totally Luke stan, and I went into this thinking, there's no way you're going to get me to go against my boy, and yet the argument for Anakin was so compelling, it had me going there. But then Chris brought me back to remembering why I love Luke so much. But then it was going back. But yeah, it's like, are we talking about who's our favorite character or who's the better character? Who has the best story arc? Who is the most realized between the two? Which is had me back and forth. But then Joe dropped what to me was the deciding vote, the deciding factor, which was defund the Jedi, which was essentially what happened in episode 3. So I'm going with Anakin.
Anakin. All right.
So being a bad guy makes you better because he defunded the Jedi.
Not better. Again, more fascinating character, more compelling character.
There you go. There you go.
Our first argument was about the Joker. He wasn't a good guy, but we still argued about him in favor of him too.
Short-sighted.
Sarah Jean.
Luke.
Okay. Molly.
Luke.
He was about to take it to Kylo Ren.
Molly doesn't like Star Wars. I just shamed her.
I like Star Wars.
Sarah Jean. Oh, no, you did Sarah Jean.
Sarah Jean already voted.
Chris.
I argued. I don't vote.
Who didn't go? Theresa.
You drunk?
I'm gonna go for Anakin, but I want to also point out that Luke may have been a better person because he lived his entire childhood with a loving family.
Did he? They worked that boy on that moisture farm.
Blue milk. What?
That was good, solid work.
You know
good,
what?
solid farm work.
But they didn't let him go to Tachi Station to get the power converters.
Yeah, mean Uncle Owen.
What? That's being mean and treat you like a Jedi? What are you talking about?
Alil, who do you vote for?
I think both characters are very whiny throughout their entire series.
Wait, are you talking about Chris and Scott?
No, I'm talking. Well, both, yes, and Luke and Anakin. But I'm going Luke.
All right, Luke wins.
I want to go on record. I vote for episode 8, Luke.
Okay.
If we're throwing that in, then
die?
Luke wins hands down.
You know, I'm going to tell you, if it is episode 8 Luke, you would have had me at that point because that was actually the best Luke out of all the Lukes.
Yes,
It was.
Also, I vote for episode 9, Luke.
He was the best Luke for the last 15 minutes. The first hour and a half, not so much.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo, Chris. Boo. Episode 9 was garbage.
Episode 8 in the beginning, he was a complete jerk. What are you talking about? When they're training? Come on.
Gee, I wonder if I might.
Episode 8, Luke was worse than anything Anakin ever did. Dismissive and.
Hold on. Killing
Scott,
Padawans is
stop there.
anything worse than that?
Yeah, no, Scott, no.
Did we not end this one?
Children, Scott. Murdering children.
He was about to take it to Kylo Ren.
Okay, I'm going to do another one. Here that's going to get people upset. Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 versus Indiana Jones 1, 2, and 3. Who wants Star Wars?
I'll do it, but
Look,
Scott, you want to take that?
Look, I'm
fired up. I'm fired up already.
I'll do Star Wars. Chris.
Joe, you want to jump in on Star Wars?
Yeah, I'm Star Wars. I'm Star Wars boy. Star Wars guy.
Joe's jumping in on Star Wars.
Star Wars friend.
And Indiana Jones is going to be
Elliott. I have the gateway to the Holy Grail here as my background.
very nice.
Hey, if you put some gray in your beard, you look like Sean Connery.
I'll take the rapists for 300.
I'm Turd Ferguson. All right.
have to go with
So
Star
we've
Wars,
got
even though
Indy
Indiana
with
Jones
Elliott doing
is a-
Indy and
is
Joe
so
doing
close.
Star Wars.
It is
Go.
an incredible adventure.
I
but
argued
Star
a bit in
Wars
the
just
last one,
digs
so
deeper
I'll
into
yield to the
mythology.
floor.
You know, Indiana
So go
Jones
on ahead,
has got
Joe. I
these
insist. Go on
relics
ahead.
and things that he's going
No,
with, but
please,
they're
please go ahead, please.
they're in the
No,
story.
no.
not
Where I
really
come from,
dig into them quite as much until you get into
only
something like Last
polite.
Crusade.
I mean, I'm part
you know,
Canadian,
with
so
the
please.
cops, but
Which
it's
part?
really- they're just kind of things
Yeah,
that are
that's a
there
good
in the
question.
thing.
Which
Star Wars
part of
embraces
Canada?
its mythology and
Well, so
and
my bottom
What
half.
part of Elliott is Canadian?
The bottom half that's not clothed right now.
The French part of the genocide part.
Hey, I was all for defunding the Jedi, so you know there's a little genocide in me.
So Star Wars, the original trilogy, is the quintessential high adventure epic story. It's literally the hero's journey. Like there's so much out there about the influences that the hero's journey had on George Lucas and how it's constructed from the ground up to be adventure and a good time and enjoyable and action-packed and character drama and all sorts of things like that. The thing that I find very interesting about Star Wars, especially the first Star Wars, which I refuse to call A New Hope, don't at me, is that it took influence from about 8 million different sources, Flash Gordon, samurai films, westerns, all sorts of things, that it stopped being original, but then kept copying other things, ideas that it looped back around on itself and became original again. There's no other property out there that has managed to accomplish that. And the pacing of Star Wars Episode 4, of Star Wars, just Star Wars, is absolutely perfect, and they carry that through all the way through to Return of the Jedi. I used to hate on Return of the Jedi because I thought the Ewoks were dumb, but then I realized that they're essentially the Viet Cong to the Empire's America, and then I came around on them, so they work. But the lightsaber is maybe the most iconic sci-fi weapon to have ever existed, and that came about in the very, very beginning of Star Wars, where it was still respected. It wasn't overused. It was used as a way to convey internalized character conflict as opposed to actual physical conflict, although it did provide awesome physical conflict. And as the series went on, the Force expanded to be able to, the concept and the abilities of the Force expanded to be able to encompass what the narrative was growing into. So you didn't have to worry about, that doesn't make any sense. Because no, it's the Force. It's a plot device, and it's an awesome plot device because it's driven by character growth and character motivation. And so it just works. To quote Todd Howard, it just works.
Okay.
Plus, you've just got
still going.
I just really quick. The cast was just so fucking good. You had Mark Hamill first starting out. Yes, he was whiny, but guess what? He grew to be not so whiny by the end of it. Like the character arc of Luke Skywalker from Star Wars to Empire to Return of the Jedi, that is such pitch perfect. You had Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Alec Guinness, Frank Oz, of course. You can't match that.
All right, Elliott.
Well,
let's see. You got Harrison Ford, so you did match that.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Here's the thing, and just so you know, I mean, I love Star Wars. Star Wars had a tremendous impact on my life as a kid, and I don't think I would be kind of the nerdy kid I am today if it weren't for Star Wars and all the things that happened there. But the Indiana Jones. Here's my thing, and this is the argument that I'm afraid I have to make. George Lucas will even say this up front. Star Wars is for kids. Okay, Star Wars is for kids to get them into mythologies and modern day mythologies. Indiana Jones is for grown-ups. It's for the ones who've left behind the childish things and have decided to go in the world of grown-ups. Because one, when it comes to the pacing, you can't I'm sorry, you can't compare the first Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. The problem I have, and again, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. When I sit down and I watch Star Wars, after the scene when the Imperial Star Destroyer comes overhead and stops the Rebel blockade runner, and you have that little skirmish between the Rebels and the Imperial boarding party, and Darth Vader says, "Rip this ship apart, da da da, I want the plans, la la la." You have this long stretch where people just go from here to there and talkie. We're talking like a half hour, when really it's all just exposition.
I'm gonna go with Molly's argument.
And then
Harry
who
Potter.
do we meet? When do things pick up again?
I
When we
have
meet
to agree that
Han Solo
Lord of the
in the
Rings
Mos
is,
Eisley Cantina.
is more impactful.
And that's when things start picking up again. And that's actually when the acting gets really good. Because up until that point,
I know you were not coming from my boy Alec Guinness right now.
No, Alec Guinness is great, but George Lucas, for all his expertise,
terrible director, yes, I
technical
know.
filmmaker, he is a horrible director when it comes to getting performances out of his actors. And Alec Guinness, he just shows up. He's incredible. Harrison Ford, he just shows up. Boom, no problem. You get that consistently. You get great acting, character, action consistently through the Indiana Jones movies. You get, Raiders of the Lost Ark, boom, right from the beginning. Things are happening. A Temple of Doom, which is even more breakneck. It's like it doesn't let you breathe. That's how much things happen in that film. And then when you finally get to The Last Crusade, you get this wonderful generational union of two great actors in Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, which is great for all us nerds who know that Indiana Jones was inspired by who? James Bond. So you got to see Indy with his literal thematic father, James Bond. So you talk about the character development, you talk about the things that are happening. Oh, and yes, I'm sorry, but while as much as I might love Star Wars, a lot of it is derivative. It's derivative of so many other things. Whereas Steven Spielberg, the visual genius that he is, he would come up with all new action sequences just out of his own imagination. He didn't have to go back and borrow from anybody else to be able to do what he did in the Raiders films or in the Indiana Jones films. And I mean, let's face it, Indiana Jones was voted the number two greatest hero in film history by the American Film Institute. Who was number one? Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. So
I thought you were going to say Anakin.
That was probably before that they released Ghost Set of Watchmen, isn't it?
Right. So, yeah, right.
I think Scott was going to argue it was Anakin.
So you see, you have a character now, and again, I love Star Wars and I love that cast, but the only one that it really made a huge star out of was Harrison Ford. Because poor Mark Hamill, as much as I love him and as much as I'm a big fan of his, did he go on to start another action movie or sci-fi franchise? No. Now we know him mostly for his voiceover stuff and appearing in certain independent films. Whereas Harrison Ford is like one of the top, and at one point was the top paid action film star in America. So, when you compare the two, when it comes to bang for your buck, and I'm telling you, if I had to sit a kid in front of Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars, I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure that kid's going to go, oh, I really want to see Star Wars again. But Raiders, they might be going for that. And I say this as a huge Star Wars fan. I'm telling you, Indiana Jones, Luke is my boy. He's my soulmate. But Indy, he's my ride or die.
Wow.
Ride and die.
Well, Luke may be your boy, but you voted for Anakin in the last round.
Oh, wow.
You're like my mother. You don't want to let go of the past. What is it, dude?
Let that past die. Kill it if you have to.
All right, we're going to take a vote. Anyone else want to chime in?
By the way,
I'd really quick like to respond to two specific arguments that he made. Number one.
Yes, 120%. We know this one already. Okay, go ahead.
The alleged originality of Steven Spielberg. Nothing is original. Everything's been done before. It's how you do it that matters. Number 2, saying Star Wars is for kids, but Indiana Jones is for grown-ups. Number 1, you're essentially saying that things for kids don't matter, which, considering we're doing a Geektastic cage match, that's a really silly argument to be making. And number 2, I'd say kids media is even more important because it's formative. It influences how people grow up and perceive the world.
Hold on, Rob, can we roll back the tape and say when I said Star Wars didn't matter?
Yeah, I'll get right on it once I figure out how Zoom works.
Yeah.
Elliot, you are correct. You never did say Star Wars didn't matter, but you completely discounted it and saying, well, that's just for kids. But this is for grown-ups, and that's why.
So, I'm just saying.
It's about the implication.
See, Joe's arguing like a Republican.
Yeah, I'll take next gen Picard.
Am I?
Says the man with the
putting words in my mouth.
Just the man with the scotch in his hand.
Was in his prime, his absolute utter prime. He had an incredible crew.
All right, let's vote. Let's vote. Chris.
Absolutely sharp. He did not have as much self-doubt. The older Picard had the experience to lean on. He had the friends to lean on.
They're fun movies. There's a lot of adventure. But Star Wars has changed. I would bet everybody in this panel
his connections and whatnot.
I don't think
a lot
Andy
sooner.
has. So,
and to
all right,
get,
Scott.
the bottom of the mystery. And next gen Picard
I have to go with Star Wars,
had,
even though Indiana
a
Jones
much easier
is
time. He would have
is
been much
so
more
good.
willing to reach out and use his contacts in the Admiralty.
Star Wars
and,
just digs
other
deeper
starship
into the
captains
mythology.
to find out
Indiana
what was
Jones,
going
he's got
on.
these
And
relics and
own
things
crew
that
and
he's
assemble
stolen
them,
but they're
to,
just
put them
kind
together.
of there in the story, not really
to put together
dig
an
into them
idea.
quite as much. You totally
The,
get into something like
I
Last
think the
Crusade.
Picard,
with the
in the later series, the older Picard,
it's
was
really
still
they're just kind of things that are there
man,
and
Star Wars
smart,
embraces its
but he was
kind of rusty and
runs
he
with
needs
it.
to let himself go.
All right, Sarah Jean.
On top of things.
I'm gonna base
the younger
this.
Picard, I think,
neither of these are really my personal
with what he
fandom,
had
so I'm
grown
just going
into.
off of like my own personal
he wouldn't
upbringing.
be happy
I
seeing
actually
that
did
was
watch
his
Indiana
future
Jones
self.
as a kid, and I
you'd be glad
loved
that he eventually
those
came around
movies.
to it. But,
Whereas
the
I
younger
didn't get
Picard
into Star
would be
Wars
upset
until
that
like
the
high
older
school and
Picard
watched
taking
them all,
so
and I was like,
long
okay, they're
to,
cool. But
get his feet on the ground.
Indiana Jones, I was raised on those. That's some good stuff.
All right, Molly.
Okay, prepare for me to be disowned, but I have to say Indiana Jones.
I would not disown you for that.
Because Star Wars has had a much bigger cultural impact and bigger impact on pretty much everyone. But Elliott's argument was better.
Oh, Alil.
I agree with that Elliott's argument was better, and I'm picking Indiana Jones. I think I like them both just fine, but both of those series, I didn't grow up with them. Those weren't my go-to. My wife.
I know you had Gummy Bears, and yeah,
exactly.
I know.
I like the Gummy Bears, the Smurfs, He-Man. Those are quality.
Well, no, come on. Smurfs is more for adults. Let's get into this argument for a second. Smurfette, anyway. Okay. So, and then
was Gargamel the real emperor?
Theresa.
I think that Elliott had the more resonant point with Indiana Jones being more adult. So I'm going to go with Indiana Jones.
Ooh, we almost had a tie because Joe jumped in there, but Indiana Jones wins. Well done. And you know what? Actually, I think they both win. I love them both. But Molly would not be disowned. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. We had a movie light box up on our wall for years with the Indiana Jones poster in it. So take that.
As a closing statement, I find it hypocritical that Elliott would open this session of Geektastic by decrying capitalism, but yet judging the success of actors based on how big of a financial success their movies are with Harrison Ford. I'm just saying.
All right, I'm going to put Joe and Elliott in a cage. You guys have to fight it out.
You know, I gotta give that one to him. I got nothing. Nothing.
I'd pay to see that, though. I'd pay to see that.
I should have brought that up in the main argument. Damn.
So All right. These are going to be faster. We're running out of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to do these. I'm going to put a couple of matchups, and I'm going to tell you who's going to do them, and you just got to do them. And you're going to get like 30 seconds or a minute at most to throw out your fight for it, okay? So the first one we're going to do is Lord of the Rings versus Harry Potter. Sarah, you take Lord of the Rings because I know you love it. Molly, I know you love Harry Potter. Go.
All right. So I do have to say, just to start this off, Harry Potter is better than Lord of the Rings. So I know that's not a good thing just to support my whole argument on, but Lord of the Rings has a great cultural impact, but it's not the same as Harry Potter. And I know you're going to bring this up.
I'm about to disown you.
J.K. Rowling is terrible, but
the worst.
The thing is, with her, she is not Harry Potter. Harry Potter is its own thing, and if let's say that J.R.R. Tolkien, it turned out that he was like a complete monster.
I mean,
what do you think the fandom would do? With Harry Potter, when that happened, we rallied around each other and went, we still love this. Because we also, Elliott, that's a fabulous background. But when we went, we still love this because the fandom is so powerful. The movies are so amazing. The books are incredible. There's so many podcasts just dedicated.
Oh my God, look at that.
They're still creating things. It's a limitless world.
That's it for time for Molly. Sarah Jean, go.
All right, Lord of the Rings, I think it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, where you're from, you know Lord of the Rings. How can you not fall in love with the story? It starts with these sweet, innocent Hobbit characters that everyone just wants to hug and love and live in the Shire and be comfy cozy. And then you follow these innocent, sweet little characters through a never-ending labyrinth of obstacles and thrilling, insane moments, one right after the other. It is nonstop until you get to the very end, this epic moment that everyone has been waiting for. It's that epic moment that keeps you holding on through the entire series, nonstop. And when you get to that, you are satisfied. You feel good. That story gives you what you want. It throws
okay, wait. Are you trying to say? One second. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you here. Are you trying to say that the same thing is not true with Harry Potter? The entire thing leads to that end battle, and at the end, it ends the way the fans wanted. And it also has some things that the fans don't agree with, and that shows the mark of a good show or movie or whatever it is, just to show that it doesn't only exist as fan service.
So if we're kind of comparing, like, if we're going the route of movies to books, I think it is
what happened to my 1 minute?
That the Lord of the Rings movies are untouchable, were brilliantly made, brilliantly performed from beginning to end. Those movies are gold. They won how many Academy Awards and
3
some awards? More than 3.
I'm kidding.
They won like 13 in 1 year. I do not think you can even come close in comparison to the Harry Potter movies. I think those were hit or miss, up and down. You kind of have a favorite. There's one that you hate. Nobody hates any of the Lord of the Rings movies. All 3 of those movies are beautiful and brilliant. And
are we talking about the movies though? Or because we're not only talking about the movies.
Oh, did you want to talk about
We're also talking about the fandom.
Rob, you gotta shut this down. There's no
somehow,
time for this.
Somehow I think Elliott's going to get hit. I don't know what's going to happen here. We're going to stop it right there. I want to vote. All right, quick. Elliott. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Great arguments on both sides, but I'm sorry, Sarah Jean, the way she was building it up, I wanted a cigarette at the end. I'm going with
all right. All right. Theresa.
I'm going to go with Molly's argument. Harry Potter.
Scott.
I have to agree that Lord of the Rings is more impactful. With
Chris.
Lord of the Rings.
Alil.
Lord of the Rings.
Joe.
Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter's a cop.
All right, that was it. Yeah. And Molly, you did not get disowned, but it's getting close.
You made good arguments. I love Harry Potter, but Lord of the Rings, as we talked about with Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings set the table for everything fantasy that we've ever seen.
As bad as the Hobbit movies are, as bad as the Hobbit movies are, The Crimes of Grindelwald is one of the worst things Hollywood's ever produced.
I know. But
That was
I
not
was not.
good.
That's why I did not bring it up.
All right. Next one. Mission Impossible versus Jason Bourne. Alil, Mission Impossible. Chris, Jason Bourne movies. Just go with the series. The series of movies. Go.
Scientology. Mic drop. That's it. Can't stop Tom Cruise. He's a robot. He's a machine. Does his own stunts. He's the American Scientology Jackie Chan. The movies are amazing. He can do anything.
You got a big laugh on that one.
Old, but he's better looking than me. Well,
I can't tell if you're arguing for or against it.
I know.
That's totally against it.
That's not
I'm just messing around with the Scientology. No, to me, the Mission Impossible movies. I love the stories. I love the spy thriller. I love the cast around it. I thought, Ving Rhames in a lot of the early ones. I just like those movies better. I think that they're done better. I think outside of Mission Impossible 2, when JJ came in with, I believe it was 3 and then 4, and then I can't remember who did the last couple with Ghost Protocol and stuff. Like those movies went to that next level. To me, Jason Bourne was just even throughout. It was a very stable movie. It was a good action film.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
It never did anything extra level. You didn't see him hanging off a plane in real life. You didn't see him doing all these crazy things like Tom Cruise does.
Dude, who hangs off a plane? And
Go, Chris.
How realistic is that? You're going to die.
He did it.
You can't breathe. He hung off a plane that's hanging there.
Because of the power of Scientology.
Flying.
Exactly.
It was Scientology.
Dianetics helped him hang off.
He donated enough money so he could breathe where there's no air.
Go, Chris. Go.
No,
Uh-oh.
Impossible are impossible for a reason because nobody can do them. It's all just, I'm not saying it's all made up stuff. They're all both made up. At least Jason Bourne fought his way out where he was doing that. Tom Cruise would get his butt kicked and then Ving Rhames would kill the guy or something would happen. I mean, the best part of some of those movies is Simon Pegg. The Mission Impossible movies, they are good. They're fun. They're enjoying. Tom Cruise shattered his ankle, finished the scene, then 3 months later came back and finished the movie. God bless him and how tough he is. But, look at those Jason Bourne movies and just watch how that guy gets his butt kicked consistently and still wins. I just think they're more realistic and more approachable for just normal people.
All right, so we're going to vote quick. Sarah Jean.
Dianetics.
Jason Bourne.
Bourne. Scott.
I don't know. Mission Impossible.
Okay, Molly.
Bourne.
Elliott.
The reason everyone's having such a hard time voting is because neither guy, I couldn't tell who was arguing for what in either position.
Why was there so much talk about Scientology?
So, you guys kept flipping and flopping on your own positions. I was like, what? Okay, so I'm just going with Jason Bourne because I hate Scientology.
All right, Theresa.
Tom Cruise.
Okay, Joe.
I completely lost the plot 30 seconds into their argument, but I did catch something about actors doing their own stunts, so my vote's for Buster Keaton.
Okay, and you know what? I can't remember what the fingers were that I was holding up, so I don't care who won. Okay, I'm missing one. So, all right, let's. I think we got time. We're gonna do one more. And this is what I've been waiting for.
Free for all.
What, you want to do a free-for-all? Sure. But isn't this whole thing a free-for-all? What are you talking about? We've got Next Generation Picard versus Star Trek Picard, the one from the new series. I want to hear it because these are distinctly different. I think this is cool.
I'm taking Star Trek. I'm taking old Picard, Star Trek.
Old Picard. All right. And Scott, you want Next Generation Picard?
Yeah, I'll take Next Gen Picard.
Do it. Timer has started.
Next Gen Picard was in his prime, his absolute utter prime. He had an incredible crew, and he had just his mind was absolutely sharp. He did not have as much self-doubt. Picard, the older Picard had the experience to lean on. He had the friends to lean on, but he didn't embrace them soon enough. He could have embraced his connections and whatnot a lot sooner, and to get to the bottom of the mystery. And Next Gen Picard would have had a much easier time. He would have been much more willing to reach out and use his contacts in the Admiralty and in other starship captains to find out what was going on, and even his own crew, and assemble them to put them together, to put together an idea. I think the Picard in the later series, the older Picard, was still a good man and very smart, but he was kind of rusty, and he'd let himself go. He had not stayed on top of things, and the younger Picard, I think, would be upset with what he had grown into, and he wouldn't be happy seeing that was his future self. But he would be glad that he eventually came around to it. But I think the younger Picard would be upset at the older Picard taking so long to get his feet on the ground and get going.
All right, Elliott.
Scott, I'm going to agree with you that everything about the young Picard I can't disagree with you with that. He was everything that we would strive to be, that we would want to be. He would inspire all of us. But the reality is that in his time, he had every advantage. He had the crew of the Enterprise. He had the best ship in the fleet. He had the cards. If he didn't have the cards stacked in his favor, he could shuffle the deck for himself. Whereas later Picard, who's right now, he's the hero we need right now. That Picard, as we know him, as he's experiencing now, he is all of us, helping us remember the idealism, the things that we love, the things that we cherish, the things that we fight for, that even we have our own doubts, but as in the show, he remembers who he used to be. It takes him a while to get there, but he remembers it and ultimately becomes that person that he needs to be, that we need him to be. And through that, he helps us today. And that's why I say today's Picard is superior to yesterday's Picard.
All right, let's take a vote. Chris.
Elliott made some good points. I'll go with Star Trek Picard.
Okay, Sarah Jean.
Next Gen Picard all the way, and your argument about he has the best ship and the best crew and the whatnot, yeah, because he earned that. He got himself there. I
wasn't arguing with you, Sarah Jean, okay? You just vote. You already ate my lunch, okay?
It was delicious.
Joe.
Next Generation. I don't know.
Next Generation. Okay, Alil. Alil doesn't know who Picard is.
I don't. I like Next Generation Picard better, but I think Elliott's arguments win. So I'm going Star Trek Picard.
Molly.
I guess I'll go with Elliott's. I don't know either that much.
You just picked him because he wrote Grumpy Cat. That's all.
Yep. Theresa.
I am going to go with Scott's argument because of something he didn't say. Old man Picard left his dog behind, and I won't forgive it.
Okay.
And he left the dog with friends.
Wait, we have a tie.
As opposed to taking his dog into danger where he could have gotten killed, I would have left my dog with friends.
Jonathan Archer got away with it.
Phrasing. Oh, different Archer. Okay, that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Geektastic Cage Match. This was awesome. Thank you again, guys. For each of our players, what do we call you guys? Contestants, debaters? I don't know. Panelists. We will
Puppet masters.
We'll make sure we put your links in the show notes so people can follow you and yell at you about how wrong you are about all these things and how right I am, even though I didn't debate. So that's it. Thank you guys once again. Awesome job. And have fun at GENRETHON. Let's see if my sound effects work.
And 1 and 2 and 2 and 1. Aw, shucks, I can't dance.